70s and 80s moms be like, "Stop exaggerating. I barely touched you." Welcome back. I'm Akorn, and today we're dusting off memories older than your first AOL password. Let's get into today's show, starting with this week's pop quiz. Which 1980s Hank Williams Jr. hit became a country anthem about rural America? If you think you know, drop it down in the comments and stay tuned because we'll give the answer later on in the show. When we went to Grandma's. When we went home. Cars these days have too many gadgets. I tried to reverse and it played a video of somebody getting run over by a car. That one's pretty bad. I think I look pretty young for my age. Me and the self-checkout camera. Well, they called them bicycle cards. 70s kids. Okay, got it. Yeah, they worked pretty well for that. What wealth looked like in the 90s. If I've ever seen these, I don't remember it. Most likely, you millennials here will probably know exactly what these are. Bring back shop class in all public schools. I agree 1000%. That is most definitely one of the classes that should have never been gotten rid of. Of course, they got rid of all the classes, which made you to have to think for yourself instead of just regurgitating the information told to us in a textbook. Guns N' Roses have really calmed down with age. Welcome to the garden. Please respect the rules. 36 years on the run, and Columbia House finally found me for not buying 8 CDs after they sent me 5 for 39 cents. In today's world, this actually wouldn't surprise me. It's sad, but it's pretty much true for a large portion of the younger generation. That's not a charger. Now that's a charger. Everyone talks about an inner child. I have an inner old lady who says inappropriate things, judges everyone, and wants to be in bed by 8 p.m. I'm at the age that not finding parking for an event is enough to make me go home. That would be true if I actually went to any events. The inventor of Pop Rocks. Sugar is not good enough. It also needs to detonate. Kinda sums it up, yeah. Gen Z. Full of uncertainty. Throws temper tantrums when things don't go his way and purposely destroys his own house, lashing out in anger. Can't control himself in front of his subordinates. Gen X. Takes responsibility, holds people accountable, and terminates incompetence accordingly. Uses constructive demonstrations to illustrate a point, never gives up when there's a setback. See the difference between commanding respect and demanding respect? When all 2 of your friends are busy. Yeah, just sitting there hanging out by yourself. I thought this one here was pretty funny. Somebody should ask if they have the same hairdresser. Not OJ's. Sounds like something OJ would say. You know, after that happened with OJ, I bet a lot of people that had Broncos, especially white Broncos, were probably getting the side eye an awful lot. I can smell this picture. I absolutely can. I actually found one of these markers and some boxes that have been packed away from who knows how many different moves, and I took the cap off and it was still good. I've used it several times since then. When I was a kid, most every boy and man I knew carried a pocket knife. They came in handy quite often. Of course, back then, people realized that an inanimate object wouldn't just come to life and start killing people. Nobody. Inflation. Yeah, even getting kidnapped costs money these days. Here's some sad news. Bruce Willis has reportedly been moved into a specialized care home. He lives with his care team in a one-story house close to his wife and daughters. He can no longer remember that he was once a star in movies like Die Hard. That's really sad to see. I think Alzheimer's and dementia is two of the worst things that can happen to a person. Watching these two as a kid was one of the main reasons our generation grew up to be so sarcastic. Do you guys think that that's true? That we learned to be sarcastic because of these guys? Or were they just a reflection of our generation? The weather just went from 90 to 65 like it saw a state trooper. That was true a few days ago or so. We actually had some pretty decent weather for a change. But it went right back up to hot and humid again. We've had worse though. We traded this for spending $50 a month scrolling through 4 different services for shows and movies you'll never actually watch. Yeah, that's very true. And we have to pay for those subscriptions, whether we actually use them or not. At least until we cancel it. And that's if you remember to cancel it. I've seen people that had 2 Netflix accounts and didn't even know it. Here they'd been paying for a second one for who knows how long. IBM announced the world's first hard disk drive, the 3.75 megabyte RAM AC 350 disk storage unit, 69 years ago today. The unit weighed more than a ton, and 50 platters ran at 1200 RPM. And just think about the amount of data that we can carry around in our pocket on a USB drive. After 30 years, Nintendo's celebrating its most famous failure with zero irony as Virtual Boy comes to Switch complete with a full console replica. Finally, a new generation gets to enjoy the eye strain of the 90s VR. I'd forgotten all about these things. After I saw this article, I actually remembered that my cousin actually had one of these. I remember playing Mario Tennis a few times. It actually wasn't that bad, in my opinion. I really hope this is my life at 80. Just me, my soulmate, and a big pizza. Did that thing come with its own pizza cutter? Kinda reminds me of the Bigfoot pizza that they used to have back in the 90s, except it was just a long rectangular pizza. Twizzlers taste like as if someone was vaguely thinking of cherries while melting plastic bags into a pasta noodle press. Once you kind of think about it, they're really not wrong. Some of y'all never got tricked into pulling one of these by your sibling, and it really shows. I actually don't remember these from back in the day. I do remember seeing these later. Never got zapped by one though. 8-year-old me making sure the bank teller could see me in the back seat so I could get my lollipop. How many of you guys have been wanting a Super Mario Brothers suit? Because you're in luck, they got them back in stock. Only $158. I wonder if I could carry that in my merch store. You've never felt pain until this latch pinched your palm skin. That is pretty accurate. Those things would certainly hurt. Looks very close to the one that's on my truck. I learned the hard way though. You don't use your hand. You use a large screwdriver. When you realize the next 5 months spell Jason. Don't worry guys, we're halfway through. Remember Kurt Cobain? This is him now. No, too bad it's not. I am Pull Down Maps years old. My dad actually had a Tascam cassette deck that was very similar to this. He would record ministry teachings onto cassettes and then paid the radio station to air them. Name a song title that asks a question. How about some George Strait? What's going on in your world? I hope they blocked off the entrance to the slide as well, and it's not just full of kids trying to get out. This is how horror movies start. Imagine the screams echoing inside. Definitely feels like a trap for anyone brave enough to try. If they tried to block off a slide like that when we were kids, we'd probably just went and got the tools and took those things off. And if they had it closed because the slide needed repaired, we'd probably just fix it too. Today's pop quiz question was, which 1980s Hank Williams Jr. hit became a country anthem about rural America? The answer is, A Country Boy Can Survive. Another young actor's life destroyed by years of partying. Yeah, that's what happens when you don't use any soap, just fabric softener. Before the iPad. Humans saw this and invented email. That is true. What if Peach wants to be with Bowser, but Mario keeps kidnapping her? Well, that would be a plot twist. There are 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and reading Hatchet in middle school. I do remember this book, but I don't remember it in school. Did you guys have this book in school, or is this more toward the millennials? Burt Reynolds, September 6th, 2018. My high school had a smoking area. Yes, it did. We were on a field trip one time, and the bus stopped at a gas station, and we were allowed to go inside. While I was in there, I remember buying a pack of cigars, and we lit them up when we got back on the bus. I even gave one to our teacher. He asked me if I had a light, so I gave him my lighter, and he sat and smoked with us on the way back to school. Is Clark Kent related to Superman? They look a little bit alike, but this is just more of those crazy conspiracy theories. John Cougar Mellencamp with Meatloaf in 1982. Remember keeping your lunch money in your kangaroos? No, I don't. I do, however, remember that there was one kid that did keep money in a pocket on his shoe. If they were kangaroos or not, I don't know. I actually don't remember kangaroo shoes at all. Might just be one of the many pieces I'm missing of my memory these days. But do you guys remember these? Let me know in the comments. I love that John Candy and Dan Aykroyd are drinking from Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back promo glasses from Burger King in this scene from The Great Outdoors. I think there was a lot of small details in the older movies that they just don't do these days, because everything is CGI and special effects and everything else these days. Claiming shotgun in the car so you had access to the binder and could play DJ for the night. If this brings back memories, it's time to schedule your colonoscopy. Until about a year ago, I never knew that the MD on these bottles actually stood for Mogan David. When did you guys realize this? Backing into spots like this, even though there is a backup camera, because we got our driver's license in the 1980s. The best thing that a backup camera is for is hooking up a trailer. Back about 15 years ago, I put one on the back of my truck, and it made so much easier to hook up a trailer when you're by yourself. Speaking of trailer hitches, I can't think of a possible reason that you would need an extension that long. At least not if it's a normal trailer. 1 minute, you're young and fun. The next, you're predicting the weather with your bad knee. Yeah, time goes by far too quickly, and so does our health. Back in the day, nobody had allergies. We just all ate dirt and moved on. Yep, Pretty much. That's why we had a great immune system, though. Old Spice. Your father wore it. Your father's father wore it. Hell, even Father Time wore it. That is very true. At this point, if the Goblin King invited me to the labyrinth, I would just go. How many of you guys remember the Chef Boyardee complete pizza in a box?
Now you can make pizzeria-style pizza right in your own oven with Chef Boyardee Pizza Mix. You get everything you need for fresh pizzeria-style pizza. Crunchy crust, Italian-style cheeses, lots of zesty sauce. Chef Boyardee Pizza Mix is fun, easy to make.
And delicious.
Yeah! Pizzeria-style pizza right in your own oven at a fraction of the cost with Chef Boyardee Pizza Mix.
Is there anything else I can assist you with today? No? Just that one thing you couldn't assist me with? Thanks. Why is it that most of the time that you call customer service, this is basically what you end up with? Did parents really just let their kids roam the neighborhood all day long without phones or water bottles and say, "Be back before dark"? Yes, they did. Most every day, actually. It's Friday night, your pizza is delivered. The Breakfast Club is ready to rock on your TV. No school tomorrow and you have permission to stay up late. You're 52 years old and the year is 2025. I came across this one this week, guys, and I just think it's pretty funny. I learned why we are always ignored. I was at a leadership conference and one of the speakers was talking about generational strife. And she talked to, or about, the boomers, the millennials, and then the zoomers. And then she said, Gen X, I didn't forget about you, even if the rest of the world has. But I have no advice for you, for a few reasons. First, you don't need it. You're the most independent and self-sufficient generation in the history of mankind, and there is literally nothing I can teach you. Second, even if I did have something to tell you, you wouldn't care. And third, the reason we ignore you is because the rest of us are all terrified of you. If the zombie apocalypse ever happens, we're all hiding behind you. Somehow, you'll know what to do. I just thought this one was pretty funny, guys. What do you guys think about it? Having a 2 VCR setup meant you had a copy of every movie you rented from Blockbuster. Yeah, including the FBI warning. You're 14 and about to spend half an hour looking through all these posters without buying anything. Most of the time, yeah. Kid. Dad, did your parents take good care of you when you were a kid? When I was a kid, they had to have TV commercials asking parents if they knew where their kids were. Fact check true. Your dad when he sees that you left a light on in an unoccupied room. I know that guy was on a show called, what? The Tiger King? I never watched the show. I remember hearing about that there was some kind of attack. I think a woman was attacked and seriously injured. I never looked into it enough to actually find out what happened, but I have seen this clip numerous times, mostly in meme videos. Leah Thompson, Elizabeth Shue, and Meg Ryan all shilled in commercials for Burger King early in their careers in the 80s. Never knew that before. Every Friday for 13 years. Maybe that's why we liked it so well. There was one of the schools that I went to that at least at one point they had 2 different lunch lines in the cafeteria. They had one that was supposed to be whatever was on this week's menu, and then the other one usually had either pizza or hamburgers, which the hamburgers wasn't very good. And you knew when they were having pizza because the line on that side would be halfway down the hallway. If you got your driving skills by watching Smokey and the Bandit and the Dukes of Hazzard, we can be friends. I learned to drive in the back roads of Kentucky. One thing you learn real quick, you either ride right on the white line, when there is one, or you'll end up getting hit head on by somebody because they're on your side of the road. The person who stands in front of you at concerts. I'm 6'4", so I never really had that problem. Major Payne turns 65. I know that movie was in the 90s, but it was still a good movie. Yellow Wendy's used to hit different. I think their Frosties were a lot better back then. Actually, everything was better back then. The truth is, half of us grew up with wood-paneled walls and no idea we were poor. Gen X. Which one from this selection annoys you the most? Total strangers who want to tell you their whole life story? People who don't give the wave when you let them in traffic? People who don't return their shopping cart? People who use or overuse literally? The shopping cart one is actually pretty bad. That annoys me a lot. Especially if they just leave it out in the middle of a parking spot or something. With that said, total strangers who want to tell you their whole life story, depending on the person and whatever you're talking about, that can get pretty annoying. Especially when you don't have time for it. On my way to HR again for nicknaming my coworker MasterCard because they take credit for other people's work. Too bad I couldn't have come up with that one back in the day. Age check. Do you know him as Arnold on Happy Days or Mr. Miyagi on The Karate Kid? I know him as both, and I'm sure most everyone else here does too. I gave my wife a ring with a big stone, as requested. Well, if you weren't specific, he's not wrong. And I'll end today's show with this. Parents today are afraid to discipline their kids, and they wonder why their children grow up with no respect. Back then, you didn't talk back. You just prayed your mom couldn't find her slipper fast enough. I think we can conclude that the timeout generation did not work out as well as the ass-whooping generation. You spare the rod, you spoil the child. And that is to be taken literally. We can look all around this nation today to see what happens to kids who are not disciplined when they grow up and are supposed to be adults. As Buddy Brown says, the prisons are full of kids that never got spanked. Alright, show's over. If you laughed, great. If you didn't, you might be too young. But hit subscribe anyway, because you'll learn a lot from the shows. Also remember to follow me on Rumble for the full uncut version of all my new shows. Link is down below in the video description. And that's it for today's show, but I'll see you guys back here on Sunday's show. Until then, I thank you all for watching. You guys take care and stay safe this weekend. This is Akorn, out and over.
快点，快点，快点，要录了，要录了，要录了。
呜，等一下，等一下。
嘿嘿嘿。